Good afternoon. I'm Todd Turner for ADU. I am the president of Collegiate Sports Associates, a consulting and executive search firm serving Division I athletics. And today we're joined by three very distinguished gentlemen who are athletics directors at some prestigious institutions. On my far right is Matt Roan. Matt is at Nicholls State. Micah Parker from California Baptist. And to my immediate right is Mike Matoso from St. Mary's. So good to have you guys with us today. All of you have been in your jobs for a while, but when you first started, you had to insert yourself into a new culture coming from outside. Talk a little bit about how you assessed that culture and prepared yourself to lead in that environment.
I think for me, coming in, having it been my second director of athletics position, I'd sent out a list of questions to everybody in the department to kind of assess the culture. What do you like? What about the job, about the college? What are the hurdles is your position? And really try to start picking out some different themes on what's going right and where are some areas of improvement. And I think it also gets some buy-in as you're talking to your staff as well, that they know that you're not going to just come in guns a-blazing and making changes, that you need to kind of listen to figure out what's going right and where are some areas that need to improve upon.
How'd they respond to that?
Actually, really positive. Actually, it took a lot of time, but I had individual meetings with every staff member in the department. So really, you could get a little even deeper dive into those areas, especially that were for stressful for staff. And as we all know, change can be stressful. Yes, so trying to alleviate people, let them know that you care about them and you're here to do what's best for them and for the college.
Micah, you've been at Cal Baptist for 11 years?
11 years, yeah.
So it's been a while,
Yeah.
but what did you find when you walked in there and how did you assess the landscape?
Well, it's a little bit of a unique situation because they hadn't had an AD for a year. The job was open for over a year. I did the questionnaire thing, and I think that was good and helpful. I also asked our president and our VP and a couple other key campus people to give me names of people I should call to say, hey, if you were starting the job as AD, what would be some things that you'd need to watch out for? Sacred cows, and make sure I didn't kill any of those. But then also, who would be the first 3 or 4 people you would contact if you were in my situation? And it was interesting was a number of names kept on coming up, no matter who I talked to, a number of names kept on coming up. So that helped me kind of come in to get to understand the culture of the university.
Yeah, good, yeah. Matt?
I think if there's one word that's synonymous with South Louisiana, it's culture, right? It's a little bit different than anywhere else that I've ever lived and anywhere I've ever been. But some of the same things that we've heard this morning, and these two gentlemen just pointed out, that I wanted to come in and I needed to listen a lot. I was 32 years old when I was announced as the AD, and so the last thing that I wanted to do was really fight the urge to be overzealous and to make a name for myself. And I came in and I listened internally. I listened externally, and for us, I could tell very, very early on through the interview process, getting boots on the ground on campus, that we needed to go a long way to establish trust or reestablish trust. That was internal and external to the department, and so I thought listening was the most important thing that we could do.
So, and how long did you stay in that listening mode?
I think we're still in it, to be honest with you. I mean, I think anytime that you have an opportunity like that we have to lead an athletics department, we play to people's passions, and you're always listening to their wants and their desires and trying to make those changes. But at the same time, we had to show that we were going to be different, that we were going to be innovative and aggressive and have high energy. And so to be able to check off those low-hanging fruits from time to time, and to be able to show, hey, it's a new day, a new era, was very important for us.
Yeah. And Micah, as you looked at the culture that existed, you probably had some ideas and opinions of how that might change. Were you able to implement your own style, your own set of values, your own set of strategies, after doing that? And how long did that take for you to do that?
It took about a year, I think, before we established this is what our mission is going to be, and this is how we're going to attain that mission. A lot of listening, but also a lot of I tried to do a little digging into the history, too, of the athletic department for the last 10 years. And then it's also key to understand your president's direction on where the president thinks the athletic department should go. And for us, I've had 3 different jobs at Cal Baptist. I've been the AD the whole time, but I was an NAI AD, I was a Division II AD, and now I'm a Division I AD. So very different jobs and very different ways in which I need to communicate to my department, just because of the size of our department has changed so much to continually daily communicate that mission. But I do think it took about a year, and I think we all can say that we wanted to, listen a lot and not do things quickly. I can honestly say that I probably did some things too quickly because I wanted to get stuff going. If I had to do it all again, I'd probably slow down a little bit. Maybe 50% of the things I did early on, I would have just maybe slowed down the process. Still done them, but slowed down the process a little bit.
And Cal Baptist has such a distinctive culture as a campus. Did you have to assimilate yourself into that pretty carefully?
I was a great fit for the university, but when we talk about mission and who to bring in, I've hired over 100 people. We have 90 employees now, but I've hired over 100 people in 10 years. So understanding the unique mission of our university is key to that hiring process, and that, of course, your people is what makes your mission.
Right. And Mike, now before we went on the air here to talk about these things, we were talking about if you had been promoted from within, the challenges that might create. Talk about that from your view, what that would be like.
It's difficult to look into a situation where you have to possibly recreate yourself. Again, you don't know that situation, whether you have 3 or 4 other internal people that were going for the position. You now need to step into, you could have other people now that you were supervising or they were supervising you. So now you need to step into that leadership position and establish yourself. So I think that can be a challenging position sometimes.
I think all of us sort of agreed informally that maybe it's more difficult than coming in as an outsider.
Yeah. I think when you walk into like this situation, even specifically at St. Mary's, I had relationships from my previous stint in the WCC, but I had the opportunity to basically come in just with a clean slate in terms of what I wanted to do and establish that as I went along.
Yeah. And part of your analysis is making sure you've got the right people in the right places. Did you have to make some tough decisions when you came in and into the new role?
I did. Yeah, I think anyone does when they start this position, and like I said, strategically take advantage of those situations as they come, as you look at the big picture for your entire staff. I think I use the analogy of a 17th team and the staff. That's what we are. We're here to support the student athletes and the coaches, and if we're not all on the same page, it doesn't jive with the coaches. So we have to make sure that we're all in sync, similar to, again, if there's a discrepancy on the team and an argument with a coach or assistant coach or a student athlete, that you go behind closed doors, you resolve the issue, and you come out on the same page. And I think that's really important, something I've really stressed with our entire staff.
So how about you guys, when you went into the new school, new role, assessing people's performance and kind of making sure they're in the right place on the bus?
Yeah.
How much of your time was spent doing that?
For me, the first year was a lot of time, and I told people up front when I came in we were going to evaluate where they were, and we're going to evaluate our structure on who was going to be on what seat on the bus. And so it took about a year, but with communication throughout that year on how everybody's doing and where I thought their strengths were, I think it went pretty good. But we've been we've been changing and evolving so much because of our growth. I feel like I've had to do that every year. I haven't had a year where I felt like, well, here we go, we're set, and this is what we're doing. We've always had to be changing because of our growth. So hopefully I've gotten better at doing that year after year.
We were kind of the same way. So I came into a little bit of a unique situation where my predecessor left middle of the summer in 2016. I got hired in October of 16, and then by the time I arrived in November of 16, there was a lot of attrition. A lot of people concerned about, hey, what's going to happen in this interim period? Some financial concerns, all of that type of stuff. And so when I got there, we were a shell of a department, not very many people at all. But so I couldn't necessarily come in and say, hey, we're going to replace. And so you observe, you evaluate. And I think any time that you place expectations on people and a new vision, a new direction, some of that stuff just happens organically. They'll weed themselves out. And so ultimately, once we got to the spring of 17 and really started planning for the 17-18 season, which was a special one for us, we had the right people. And then since that time, we've been able to add to it and had a lot of growth to complement that, the people who stayed around.
Always in mid-major programs, like every program, resources become a huge issue in making decisions about changes. Did you have to reallocate any of your resources to do some of the things that you needed to do to change the culture and get it moving in the direction you wanted to?
So the president who hired me after about a year, resigned and transitioned into a different role, and so a new president came in. So I've had the chance to work for 2 presidents at Nichols now, and so initially, it was take the resources that you have, what was vacated, and build the team as best you can, and then. Fortunately, we've been very successful and lucky since Dr. Clune arrived on campus, like I said, in January of 2018, to have the support to try to grow this thing together. And so we've been fortunate in that way.
Yeah. In hiring new people, if you're at a place where you're growing so much, you've got to develop your own resources, so the university's got to provide them for you. Did you have to compromise in any way in the talent that you were hiring because of resources, particularly when you're competing against larger schools with bigger budgets?
I think there's a little bit of that, but that could be looked at as a blessing. Meaning, I might not be able to hire the person that was going to get a salary at UCLA or USC. So that may mean I need to hire somebody that needs a little more grooming or a little more experience. But you get to be the one that shapes that. And so there might be some times when we hire somebody that's maybe a little younger, or maybe doesn't have the same resume as a Power 5 school. But you get to shape and be a part of that growth with that individual, and I think that helps your culture because you can help shape them into what you want them to be and how they're going to best fit your university. Whereas if it's someone else that's been at a bigger place, they might have their own preconceived notions on how things should be done, and maybe that doesn't work out so well.
What did you find in your situation?
Yeah, I think the great thing about schools like us is that you have the opportunity to get so many different experiences. I've spent close to 18 years now in mid-major. I came in as a academic coordinator, moved over to compliance, got my feet wet in game management, sports supervision. So I had the opportunity to move within the organization. So I think the one thing that we can, if you're not good at your job at our school, it's going to show right away because there's no place to hide. We don't have 9 marketing people or 9 sports information directors. It's like you got to go, and sometimes you get a little bit thrown into the fire, but I think you get stronger from that. And again, I think the opportunity that we can allow people to grow professionally is something that you can't get at a Power 5 school.
How did you assess people's performance with limited staff and maybe limited abilities to move them elsewhere? Did you make changes? Did you mentor them? What did you do about that?
I just watch them in their work. I think the one benefit I've had is other than taping ankles, I've done every job in the department, So really just sitting down and getting to know people, figuring out where their strengths are, then try to put them into those roles. I had a couple opportunities where people really weren't even sure why they were coming in the office, and then saying, listen, I'm actually going to give you this additional opportunity. You're going to get a raise and a title change. So go prove to me that you can do this. So I think it's similar to a coach with a student athlete, like building people up, letting them know that you're there, and give them an opportunity to be successful.
So all of you have achieved maybe an ultimate goal, which is to be a director of athletics. But you just didn't fall into those jobs. You evolved over time. Talk a little bit. This is a little off script, but talk a little bit about your path and maybe how that prepared you for that AD's job. Yeah,
I started off. I was a Division II student athlete. Worked my way. Played baseball at Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo. Kind of fell into this after graduation and. I got my first full-time job at University of Southern California. I was there for 5 years on the academic side. Went to a similar position at University of San Diego. Moved up from a coordinator to a director to assistant AD to associate to a senior associate. And then was kind of ready to be an AD and was going through the process of interviews and just wasn't getting the looks, and an opportunity came up at Division II. So I kind of went full circle and took a chance. I kind of took a leap. I left San Diego that I loved. It was a tough place to leave. I left Division I, but what I found going back was coaches are still coaches, student athletes are still student athletes. The university's still the university. So it was in a lot of ways a breath of fresh air. And at that point, as I started looking back at Division I opportunities, I was more, I think, at peace with the process of just letting it play through, not so worried about whether or not I got a job or not. I felt like I was in a good place and like, hey, if this is where I'm supposed to be, this is where I'm supposed to be. I always felt like I could do this job, but I wasn't. Once I kind of stopped worrying about it, it all just kind of fell into place.
That's great. Micah?
For me, I was a basketball coach for 17 years at various levels, so I got to experience a at University of Nebraska. I got as a director of basketball operations, I got to experience mid-major at Drake University, and then I also worked at a small Christian university. So I got to see really every level as a coach. I think being a coach for that long has helped me in my relationship with my coaches because I understand the anxieties and the uncertainties that they're going through. And I'm not coaching athletes anymore. I wouldn't say I'm coaching coaches, but I'm alongside them, and I can, because I've been one of them, I understand them a little bit more, I think. But having worked at a smaller school too, when you've done everything and worn every hat, I think that helps being at a school like ours because we can have some empathy for someone that's maybe have 4 or 5 plates up in the air at the same time, and then trying to help them focus on, okay, I know you got all these things going on, but let's prioritize those things and go from there. So my experience as a coach, I think, has helped me tremendously.
Yeah, I expect it would. Matt?
I think for me, kind of the younger guy in the room and what I lack in quantity of years of experience, I think I make up with quality of years of experience. But similar to him, I was a student athlete. As you can tell from my frame that I was a long distance runner, just kidding. Played football for Coach Beamer at Virginia Tech for a couple years and then transferred to Southern Utah University. And I've had great people kind of guide me and mentor me along my path. And once I finished playing, I had the opportunity to go to law school at the University of Kentucky, where I really was confirmed to me that I wanted to work with 18 to 22-year-old young men and young women and make an impact, hopefully, on their lives the same way that my coaches did for me. And upon finishing up there, I had the chance to go back to my alma mater, Southern Utah, where a guy by the name of Mike Benson was the president, who gave me an opportunity to really do it at the executive level right away. I mean, I'm 2 weeks out of graduation from law school, and I'm sitting with the VP for Finance and Administration and a provost and working on special projects for the president. And I spent 1.5 years with him there. Then he asked me to come with him to Eastern Kentucky University, where, as we talked earlier, I have a chance to watch firsthand a guy like Mark Sandy do it the way that he does it, and it's always the right way. And so really understood and love the academy. It's just rather than faculty and the student population at large, I'd rather work with coaches and student athletes. And this opportunity presented itself at Nichols and was kind of really a perfect meshing of that, of a smaller size school with kind of a little bit of a chip on its shoulder, and we knew that we could make an impact and have had a blast ever since.
The one commonality I think all of you shared is a variety of experiences, mentors and people that shaped you along the way and helped you into the seat you're in today, where you're making tough decisions and providing leadership and doing a really fine job. So thank you for taking the time to be with us today. I'm Todd Turner with Collegiate Sports Associates, and this is for ADU. Thanks very much.